And him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Casey Tager here. One of the new features of the podcast is we'll have walk-up music for each of our people who join us. So you guys can pick a song, and it'll be sort of your walk-up tune. We'll start with it and finish with it. So, Tager, thank you for joining me again today. How are you?
I'm doing well, Rob. Thanks for having me. That's one of my classics right there. It brings me back. Thanks for that.
Congrats on the big win this weekend. How do you feel?
You know what? I needed that one. I felt good. God, I've had these Monday Night Madness games kind of like you've had in the past, and it's come down to the final minute of every one of these games, it feels like. So, to have 3 games in a row of under 9 points is stressful. I think I made the joke that it probably took 2 years off of my life, but we'll see what happens in November. I'm 2 years at the end of my life might be fine if we have to deal with 4 more years of Trump. So.
Fingers crossed. Go Kamala tonight.
Some of my big guys stepped up, and then I kind of got a break. Randy, we might talk. I mean, that trade that he makes, if he doesn't make that trade, I lose. So that kind of just went in my favor, and it was the opposite of my initial reaction when the trade happened. I thought it him a little bit now in the moment as opposed to down the road. But if he doesn't make the trade, he wins. So huge. I'm counting my blessings. So. Needed that one. Need to find one more, and 2 and 3. I feel like I've.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, today we're going to do it a little bit differently. We'll try to mix it up and not kind of have it the same style each time. We're going to do kind of a PTI style show. Nobody's going to mix us up with Will Bond or any other guys from that show. But we'll do it. So, Casey, we'll get different subjects. We'll have a time limit. The buzzer will go off, then we'll go to the next. Sound good?
That's great. I love it.
I'm trying to figure out a way to put that clock on the screen. But we're not there yet, technologically speaking. Okay, first one. Week 4 winners. Casey, who are the winners from week 4?
You know what? I like the Pinella division as a whole. I mean, I know it's picking a lot of teams, but, you start looking at it, and, AJ won a trade, the first big trade, and, his team got better. It got younger. Especially, at the running back position. He got a stud quarterback. All the things that I was talking about his squad a week ago, he ran with that and he got better. So I like, he added another rookie receiver. He got a rookie running back, and then he got Deshaun Watson. So, arguably that's the top player in the deal. So I like.
He got rid of Haskins.
Yeah, exactly. I think you rewind. 5 days ago, you thought Haskins would at least buy you the rest of the season. Randy makes that deal because of Cam Newton. Then Cam Newton, a day later, gets COVID, and that thing just blows up. I mean, that thing now totally favors AJ, where, I think made the case both ways. Like I said, I think I talked to a couple people earlier. I thought Randy won it for the next 2 or 3 weeks, but I liked how AJ's team looked, 3 or 4 weeks later. Now with everything with Randy's team, I mean, he's a team that is big time hurt by that deal and everything that's going on in the NFL league. So and then AJ gets a win. And then Rob gets a big win. We talked about how big of a matchup Rockford had. So you had the 2 teams at the bottom of that division. Everybody's at 2 and 2. It's wide open. The laughing stock of the Pinella looks like it's going to be competitive this year. Then you look at Los, who, he took the loss, but he had the second highest score for the week. So you can't fault that. Rob wins without Michael Thomas. Los, picks up Robert Tonyan that looks like he could be a tight end. So, the Pinella got better. When you look at a lot of those other teams, Musa and Jeffrey, who we had at 1 and 2 in the power rankings, they lose, one of their top running backs. So I think the balance of power in the league all of a sudden shifted to the Pinella. They're not on the Carl level just yet, but they're making moves right now, and I liked that. My other big winner, honestly, he was supposed to win that game. We both picked Blake in an upset.
Mm-hmm.
Blake probably should have won that game. A couple different moves with picking up a different receiver, picking up a different defense, and he pulls that off. But
Shame on Blake for starting the any defense against the Chiefs. Shame on you, Blake.
Yeah, well, especially when you're going up against Mahomes. That was the thing about the Demarcus Robinson pick. Is like, okay, you need a bad Mahomes game, so why are you grabbing Robinson? You know, it just makes sense. The only way Blake was going to pull off that upset on Monday was going to be able to get a Mahomes bad game. And, you know, the Devontae Adams last minute scratch hurt. You know, I think if Adams plays, he might win that thing straight up. So that was tough. But yeah, I feel like you just got to know your opponent, and you got to know that, okay, I got to stay away from these Chiefs because I'm going up.
All right. Well, the alarm went off. Very good. We're going to the next subject. Buy or sell. So, Casey, we're going to buy or sell these certain players that either have had a really good start, maybe surprisingly good start, maybe they've had some interesting injury issues, or just maybe we're just not unsure of them altogether. The first one is Gardner Minshew. I think he's ranked the 14th overall player in the SKFL right now. He's on a team that has to chuck it a lot. Buy or sell Minshew. Magic.
You know what? You always knew that he was going to be one of those, you know, garbage time scorers. I think, you know, I'm on record as saying I didn't like the Jags at all. I thought they were going to this year. You've got him as 14 overall. I was looking at just quarterback ranks, and he's number 11. So, you know, that puts him as a quarterback 1. I'm not buying him as a quarterback 1. So I think I'm going to go sell on him. You know, he's still startable. He's still in a super flex 2-quarterback league. Like, Minshew's going to play, but I don't trust him staying above some of these guys like, you know, Drew Brees and Wentz. And I think some of those guys are just a little bit better. And, you know, we saw what a Minshew floor game looks like on Thursday 2 weeks ago. And I just think, you know, you look at his schedule and he hasn't really played a tough defense yet, other than the Colts right out the gate. So I think as he starts playing tougher teams, you're not going to be banking on quarterback 1 numbers. So I'm selling on Minshew.
Selling on Minshew. I think I'm with you on that. Buy or sell Michael Thomas. He's on here because A, he's banged up, and then B, what's Breeze's deal? Can he throw it over 10 yards down the field? Buy or sell Michael Thomas?
You know, I mean, right now, I mean, Michael Thomas is, in terms of value, is at a floor. I mean, he came out week 1 and got like a 6 or a 7 or something like that, which I'll bet you Michael Thomas hasn't been in single digits in 2 years. If you're still considering him, you know, the number 1, number 2 receiver in the league, I don't know if you can go there on him anymore. But Drew Brees actually has looked a little bit better the last 2 weeks. There was a Monday night game where he was floating ducks out there. It was the first game without Michael Thomas, and I was concerned. I was worried about it. But the last couple, you know, he got in a shootout with Aaron Rodgers. I'm buying Michael Thomas. If Rockford, if you're selling Michael Thomas, I'll put my hand up because I'd be buying on him. You know, I don't know if he's 1 or 2, but it'd be hard to say that Michael Thomas isn't from here on out, once he gets healthy and starts playing again, a top 5 or 6 receiver. I mean, we've seen it for a couple years now. Breeze just locks into that guy, and, you know, his floor is 8-9 catches for 100 yards. And when you can get that, I mean, there's not many receivers in the league that can do it. Like I said, it all comes back to Drew Brees. And if you would have asked me about him 2 weeks ago, I'm hesitant. But I think Drew Brees is looking a little bit better. They'll tailor that offense to him. And, you know, Michael Thomas isn't a deep downfield guy. I mean, he's the possession guy. And that's what Drew Brees can do. He's accurate. He'll be fine. He's going to get back to being a PPR machine.
I can't turn the alarm off. Okay, got it. Fix it. All right, the last one. Sorry to cut you off there. Last one is good. OBJ. He's coming off the big week last week for use, but he certainly has been inconsistent. Are you buying or selling?
I mean, Odell is a guy that, you know, his best game as a Brown. And I think, you know, for 2 years, you were waiting to see that type of output from Odell. The funny thing is, you know, he throws up a 59, but, you know, 75% of those points were on runs. I mean, it's still not really getting the ball in the air. So you're not consistently getting, you know, a whammy on a run from Odell. You're not getting you're not getting 2 more rushing touchdowns from Odell for the rest of the year. So, and that was all of his points in that game. In addition to the 1 catch, and that came from Jarvis Landry on a trick play. So, you know, it was a weird line. I mean, it was late in the game. He takes a 59-yard reverse. Early first quarter, he catches a trick pass from a receiver. So that's not going to happen week in and week out. I still trust Odell, the athlete, the player. You know, he's been a receiver 3 for the last 2 years. It depends on where you value him. If you think 59s are going to be, you're just not watching that offense enough. But I like Odell. I think he needed a big game like that to catapult him to where he was with the Giants. So I think bigger things are in store for him. You got a new coach there that tailored this offense around his scheme. And, that scheme is not throwing the ball 40 times and just locking in on your best receiver. But they set up the play action. Odell's going to get a couple more whammies this year. They're going to take shots to him. He's still, if I was starting a real NFL team, I don't know if I can name 5 or 6 receivers I'd take over him, minus all of the drama that he brings. So I'm buying Odell.
This is a buy.
I'm a buy, but he's a legit low end receiver one for most of the weeks moving forward.
All right, I think I might disagree. I think I might sell on OBJ right now. Buy low, sell high. I don't know. I think I would sell. You go buy.
He's at his peak, so it makes sense. A lot of times you want to sell on a peak, but I've also seen times where those peaks keep rising, and I think he could go on a run right now.
Okay. Next section, 3 minutes. What are some of the surprises you've had or seen here in 2020, be it the fantasy league itself, some of the owners, or just NFL football in general?
Yeah, I've got a couple players that I'll touch on first. One, we'll just piggyback on the Odell thing. It's Baker Mayfield. I'm trying to bring him back some mojo to him with the headband today, but I kept him. Didn't love his keeper. I didn't really have a ton of spots. I never expected, quarterback 1, 40s and 50s, but Baker Mayfield is quarterback number 26.
Wow.
He's not even a low-end quarterback 2 right now. He's underneath guys. He's underneath Sam Darnold. He's underneath Herbert, who's only played 3 games. Bad. And the scary part of it is the Browns are rolling and they're putting up points. So, if you told me the Browns were going to score 49, 48, whatever it was against the Cowboys, and Baker only had a 27, that shocks me. I thought this offense going in, just watching what the Vikings did with Kirk Cousins and Diggs, I thought that was going to be the Baker-Odell matchup. And Cousins was always a steady quarterback. He took a couple deep shots, and when he hit on those big deep shots, he was throwing up 40s and 50s. And then he was just always steady in the mid-25s to 30s. And right now, we're only seeing the mid-25s a quarter of the way through the season. And, you're getting 27 as your peak from a quarterback. There's some teams that would rather throw, a flex player in that position, I feel like.
Possibly.
Yeah. So, no.
Especially as it gets colder, and they're probably going to run it more. Any other surprises in 2020?
Yeah, Julio Jones is one. We talked about him a little bit last week. And I didn't expect that at all. I thought Julio was one of the top 3 or 4 players available coming out of this draft after keepers. And I'm very hesitant on somebody, a receiver at age 31 that now has had a hamstring flare up on him twice. I don't think he's playing for a couple weeks now. We've seen this with older receivers. AJ Green looks done. Randall hit a wall right around that age.
Green really does look done too.
He looks done.
He's not even getting balls thrown his way.
Yeah. Julio Jones, was my number 4 receiver just with everybody available going into the draft. And I don't think I would take him in the top 15 or 20 at this point. He's still got name. The Falcons are going to ton. So if he's out there, you're fine starting the guy. But right now, I'm really worried about his health and how many more games he plays the rest of the year because he's looked bad. And for him to, in a must-win game the Falcons had on Monday night, to not be able to finish that hamstring was not ready for him to play. He's in trouble. He's a guy that I was definitely on. And then another Robbie as a shock the other way. I remember Robbie Anderson's number 6 receiver in the league. That's high-end receiver 1. And he's totally taken everything away from DJ Moore that you thought was going to be that player. So Robbie Anderson was a guy, I had Curtis Samuel ahead of him. I had DJ Moore ahead of him, 3rd in that pecking order of that offense. And he looks like the go-to guy right now in Carolina. So that's another shocker. I remember Cappers, I can't remember what round he took him in 7 or 8 maybe. And when he did it, I was like, I had the reaction of the Gronk pick. I'm like, wow, I didn't see that one coming. So no, I don't know if he'll keep that going. He'd be a guy that if we were buy selling, I'd sell on him. But right now, he's a top 6 receiver, and I would have said that a month ago.
Yeah, he's become a lot more consistent with the over the middle stuff. He's always been kind of a one-hit wonder. He's going to hit maybe a
Yes,
whammy every third week or one
exactly.
big play to give you points, but then he can also give you a two.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe that's just Teddy's style. He's going underneath more, is trying to find him. I think they might have played together in New York with the Jets for a bit too, so maybe they have some chemistry there. But you're right. If we put Robbie Anderson, I'd probably be selling on him too. But Panthers are better than you think. I think Matt Rule is a really good coach, so maybe they're finding a way to get things done there. Next one is, if I can get it to go, bingo, NFL season. I know this has been a big talk on some of our group texts about COVID. It's reared its ugly head here in week 4. If you had to guess, does this NFL season finish?
I think it finishes. This is tough. I mean, any answer here is legit. I don't think that it finishes on the schedule as it was set up currently. There are issues. The NFL just feels like it's avoiding it and thinking it's just going to go away, and forgetting that the incubation period is a couple days, and forgetting that if you're not testing positive, you still might have it, you still might transmit. I'm worried. I think this is a very, very, very big week. This week 5, I think if we can go off without any postponements or cancels or whatever they end up doing, I feel a lot better about it. But this week, I feel like once you get into 2 or 3 teams missing games, I don't know how you make that up within the schedule of the NFL. We saw it week 1 where last week where they were able to adjust just a couple games in week 7 and 8 to make it work. Once you have this happen 2 or 3 more times, that doesn't work without pushing the season out or pumping the brakes and building in like an entire league bye somewhere in the middle, which I don't know. The same way that all these other sports ended up finishing, I think this will finish, but I wouldn't be surprised if you get some sort of momentary break, almost like the NBA and hockey had, because it's different than what I thought. I thought you'd get these random players testing, they'd get ruled out, they'd find a way with all the testing protocol to be able to play these games. If the Titans had missed 2 games in a row, there's issues. I mean, I don't think the NFL can just look past that. I'm worried, and a lot of it's just breaking over 24, 36 hours. I think a week ago, I felt great. Then the last 7 days, a lot of things have changed, and the last 2 days, I'm very worried right now. Most of that stems from what's happening in Tennessee.
Do you think there's going to be, they've got a little more time left on this one, do you think there's going to be any NFL teams this year that don't play all 16?
I don't, and because I don't think it in the NFL. I mean, one game is such a big thing that, I mean, if all of a sudden you get to the end of the year, I know in baseball they did that a little bit where it was like win percentage, but football, you can't do it. I mean, if you look at the end of the year, there is always a team or two that missed the playoffs by 1 game. And, if you've got a team that's playing 15 games or a couple teams that are playing 15, I think that just impacts way too much. I think they've got to find a way to do it. Double headers will never work in the NFL, but the thing with the Chiefs now, because their game getting pushed back and they have a game in 2 weeks on a Thursday, they are playing 3 games in a matter of 9 days. And so maybe 10 days, but so maybe they can do something where they, throw in what they call an NFL doubleheader, where you have a random midweek game for one of these teams to make it up. But I don't think that the NFL will work. There are too many ramifications if you've got some teams that are only playing 15.
Gotcha. Okay, I agree with you as well. I think they'll figure out a way to get that. And I couldn't imagine a team finishing, 7-4 or something. And how do you do that?
Exactly.
So,
how do you make 7-4 percentage a playoff team? I mean,
right.
You just can't.
Okay, the next category is pick one. I'm going to put 2 players on the screen. You're going to pick which one you think would make the most sense for our team in a dynasty SKFL league. So we're thinking not today or for next weekend, but for long term. So first one, pick one.
If IAC could own one of these guys, who do I want?
Yep. Okay, you got Justin Herbert. You got Tom Brady. Tom, hey, looking real good last week. He put up a big 57 through 5 touchdowns. Looked good. Herbert throwing missiles out there, just chucking it, and people come down with it for whammies. So which one would you have if you got to pick one of these 2 guys?
This one's really tough because, I mean, it's the opposite ends of the spectrum. I mean, right now, IAC is always playing, for the most part, to win now. I mean, if you're asking me right now with my hole with Baker Mayfield, I'm taking Brady. And that's even considering the long-term ramifications and keepers, but I think Brady helps my team right now. I liked Brady a lot going in. I know there were, I think I've got a bet with AJ right now on whether or not they win 10 plus this year. I think 10 we wash. If I get 11 and up, it's 9 and under, he wins. I think he's got weapons. He's got something to prove. I think Brady finishes as a low-end quarterback one. It's one of the reasons why I said Musa just totally dominated that trade with AJ. Herbert impressed me. I mean, I watched him a ton in college. I didn't think he was going to be that good of an NFL quarterback. He's looked the part right now. You know, they've got weapons, so I like that offense. The thing with Herbert, you know, everybody looks at him as this rookie with potential keeper value.
Was he in the 10th?
He was an 11, and I was thinking 9 or 10, but he was an 11, so that's actually decent. But I mean, we've seen, you know, the NFL. I mean, the SKFL keeper quarterbacks, like, it's 11's not that big of a steal on him. I mean, I think if you go into next year, I mean, does Herbert even get drafted in the, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th round? I guess it'll depend what he does over the rest of the season. I am not ready to kind of anoint Herbert as, you know, a really good quarterback in the NFL. So I think right now, you ask me who I'm picking. I'll take Brady for a year over 3 to 4 years of Herbert.
Gotcha. Okay. I think I would agree. I think I would take Brady. If Herbert was a 15th, 16th round keeper, I'd probably go that direction.
Exactly.
But at 11, I think you can get a Herbert maybe a little bit light at that point in the draft next year. Okay, next one. 2 Seahawk receivers. You got Lockett, kind of your underneath guy with an occasional burst down the field, and then Metcalf, who I think leads the NFL in yards receiving, or is up there right now with only a handful of catches. So who is IAC picking here? I think I know which way you would go. You going Lockett? You going Metcalf long term?
Yeah, this one, it should be more difficult of a decision. They're really close. It's, you know, it's the 1A, 1B thing where it's like there's going to be games where Lockett outscores them. There's going to be games where DK outscores them. They're both pretty young. They're both going to be in that offense with Russell Wilson for a while. I'm going DK for sure.
He's always so fucking open.
I know, and that's what
Jesus.
Never thought that, you know, his route running that he'd be able to do that. He was just basically run a straight line and take a shot with him and see if he can just kind of man people over. But he's always open, and credit the offense because they're getting weight, and he's just tough to bring down. This guy, I think DK is, you know, the next coming of a guy like Julio Jones. And if they're going to let Russell Wilson keep chucking it, you know, that guy is unstoppable out there. You know, Lockett will have his game. Talking about route running, I mean, he is a better route runner than DK. He's one of the 3 or 4 best in the league, so he'll get open. But, you know, DK is just one of those guys that I don't care if Russell Wilson's having a bad game. I don't care if he's got the best cornerback guarding him. DK Metcalf, I mean, is always open, even if he's got a guy right on him. So
I couldn't believe that play at the end of the Dolphin game. Though they kind of pitched it to him on the side. He just ran over 2 guys and almost scored a touchdown. It's like, good God.
I know. And I was going up against DK, and if he gets that touchdown, I lose. So DK, I think we've kind of seen what Tyler Lockett's ceiling is. You know, he's never going to be like a top 3 or 4 receiver in the league. I don't think we're close to what DK's ceiling is. And I mean, if you told me in 2 or 3 years DK Metcalf is the number 1 fantasy receiver in the NFL,
I'd buy that.
Wouldn't shock me.
No, wouldn't shock me. Okay, last one. Ezekiel Elliott, or Dalvin Cook. E's kind of had a rough, I mean, he's put up good numbers, but not Ezekiel Elliott type of numbers so far. Cook, on the other hand, is cooking. He's had some big runs, some whammies. Who would IAC pick if you're starting a franchise today? You taking Elliott? You taking Cook?
It's a good one. I've wanted Zeke for 3 or 4 years now, and I'm not going to pivot off of that. So I'd go Zeke. You know, right now the overall offense, just as a whole, Dallas looks like it might have the best offense in football. You're right; they're not using them. They're letting Dak throw right now, which is bizarre to me, and they're not incorporating Easy in the passing game,
right.
Which is
great screen guy. He can play receiver for you too.
He's one of those guys. He catches a screen and it's not 3 or 4 yards; it's 13 or 14 yards consistently. And Dak's just looking downfield. Maybe that's because of all of his receivers that he has. But I think Zeke, they'll get back to Zeke at some point. I mean, especially right now, the way Dalvin's playing these games, I think they need to go back and about. Dalvin Cook is, that offense is tailored to a running back. So he's going to get his carries. He's going to get lanes. They want to ride Dalvin Cook. You can't really go wrong with either of these. I like Zeke because I like the offense. I think he's a little bit less of an injury risk than maybe Dalvin Cook. Cook's been banged up a couple times over the last couple years. Nothing really major, but he'll miss a game or two here or there. And I feel like Zeke's pretty consistent. I mean, if he's not getting suspended by the NFL, he'll be out there. And it's the eye test for me when I'm watching these games on Red Zone. If I've gone against both these guys. They're both in the Carl. So I go against these guys, twice a year.
Zeke scares you more, that's for sure. Especially in the passing game.
Yes, I'm more worried about when I'm facing Eazy than I am when I'm facing Dalvin. I mean, Dalvin's more breakaway speed and some whammy side upside, but Zeke, we've seen consistent 40s to 50s out of Zeke over a 4 or 5 week stretch, and I think that's coming. I'll go easy on this one.
Okay, I will too. All right, and so your Thursday night pick, we got a pretty interesting game coming up. Battle of 2, 3-1 teams. You got Tampa Bay going to Chicago. I think Tampa Bay right now it's a 5.5 point favorite for you junkies out there. I think I might stay away from that one. But what is your pick from a game standpoint? Who do you like to win? From a betting standpoint or from a fantasy standpoint?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's 2, 3-1 teams. So on the surface, somebody watching this game, this is a lot better than what we've had the last couple of weeks. I mean, we had Broncos, Jets, we had Jaguars, Dolphins. And so this one's intriguing. You've got some playoff teams. I'm not buying the Bears yet. I mean, I don't like their 3-1 record. I liked the move to Foles, but he looked horrible. Now, granted, it was against the Colts, but they struggled. And I talked about it with Brady earlier. I liked the Bucs a lot. I think they're, an 11-win team this year. So if that's the case, they better find a way to beat the Bears. I don't care if it's on the road or not. I've got Tampa winning. I think they'll win pretty big. I know Godwin's hurt. Mike Evans is a little banged up. Doesn't really matter for Brady. The Tampa Bay defense is pretty good. I mean, it's actually really good. And so I think the Bears are going to be in trouble in that game. They've got a cornerback, Carlton Davis, that, he's emerging as kind of a lockdown corner when he goes up on a guy. So the matchup I'm curious to see will be him on Allen Robinson. Banks was the guy that shut Michael Thomas down week 1 for
he was.
So I think he's good. They'll get after the quarterback. Guys that Brady and Evans are going to hit. I think Evans' big game is coming. He's getting touchdowns, but he's not getting a ton of yards. I think a big Mike Evans game is coming while Godwin's hurt. OJ Howard went down and he was getting some action. So I think they're going to figure out, okay, let's Mike Evans. I think he's the high scorer. I liked what I saw out of Ronald Jones a lot last week with Fournette down. He looked good. He looked the best I've ever remembered seeing him, running through guys, running away from people. So, as much as I 2 weeks ago would have thought Fournette, that was going to be his job after that strong week 2. So far, if you've just passed, Ronald Jones has looked better from what I have seen. So I'm curious to see on what Ronald Jones can do in this game, because it's against the Bears defense that's going to be tough. But give me the Bucs. I'm not really worried about 5.5, but it's a Thursday game on the road. Those are usually stayaways. I agree. So give me Tampa. Give me Tom Brady. Brady's figuring it out, and it's funny. I mean, everybody's talking about the MVP quarterbacks of Rodgers and Josh Allen and Russell Wilson, and no one's talking about Tom Brady yet. And he's really only had one really big game, but I going to find a way to get to double-digit wins and be good. He's got something to prove. I mean, he wants to go out there and show that it wasn't Belichick the whole time. It was him. So we're about to see that.
Yeah, I think it's a stay away from a betting perspective. I probably would go like Tampa Bay 24, Chicago 16. So that's the cover. Probably maybe take the under 2 if I was, but I'm probably staying away as well. Yeah, I got Ronald Jones, and he looked really good last week. I got Taylor. That Bears run defense is tough, so I'm not feeling good about having to start him. It's because I'm down Stafford, so I'm starting 4 running backs as of now. We'll probably take one out and probably add Thomas in once I can get him off IR. So I don't think Jones is a good play this week, maybe in the passing game, but he dropped some last week too. And I think Brady's maybe losing a little confidence in him in those short passes. But
and Vaughn and that rookie Keyshawn Vaughn looked good. So and he's the third down back that wants to. So I agree. I mean, it's not a great matchup for Jones, but I mean, you got Montgomery. I mean, honestly, you might be throwing 2 running backs out in this matchup, which it can be a fun thing to do. But I mean, we've talked about Thursday night slop, and we haven't really seen that this year. Where these Thursday night games really aren't giving you any fantasy points, but it's been there in the past. So, it's always tough. If you're not sold on a guy playing on a Thursday, tough to ride that guy, because if he doesn't show up, you're pissed for 3 days.
You don't want that.
Yeah. The one thing, though, is, this is a weird year where games are getting canceled. I mean, there was risk of that Chief Patriot game getting canceled. I'm honestly now thinking, you play your guys on Thursdays because you can book those points. All of a sudden, we have this outbreak where 3 or 4 games are getting canceled or postponed, and you've had 2 guys from Thursday on your bench. You're going to be pretty pissed off. But yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you. It's not going to be high flying. It's not going to be a ton of yards and scoring. So if you don't get those touchdowns to hit from those 2 running backs, they're scoring really in the in the 20s. I don't think either of them are going to go over 100 yards. So they'll be right there around 18, 19, 20 points unless they get the touchdowns.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I agree completely. And, finally, in closing, Casey, we'll get some of the music going back on here. Any thoughts, just general thoughts on the league? I know you're 1-3 now. You're thinking, okay, I'm back in the hunt, which you are, especially with the total points you have. Any other just general thoughts you have for us?
You know what? I'm just hoping we can get through it, because this looks like a really fun year. I mean, it's one of those we always say about it. I mean, it always ends up, especially with that doubleheader late, everybody really stays in it. I'm curious. The teams that usually are sellers right around the deadline look like they have pretty good teams. So I don't think we're going to have a ton of teams selling off.
Right.
The teams that probably are looking to sell off don't really have a ton to offer. So I don't know if we're going to have one of these big blockbuster, change of balance of power type of deals. AJ's always one that's looking to flip, but he looks like he's got a pretty young team that can compete. So these next 2 weeks are going to be fun. I'm at 1-3, and I still feel pretty good about my squad, and I'm down there at like 10th right now in the overall rankings in the in the Mr. Playoffs. So 1-3, when all these other teams are 2-2, you're only a game out, and it's the by. I mean, to think that we're in week 5, I mean, damn near a third of the way through the season already is kind of blowing my mind. So I hope we don't get any hiccups, because I think it's going to be a stretch. It's, anybody can win it. And in years past, Ian's had such a tough team that it was like, okay, it's going to take somebody to upset Ian. This year, Musa looks like he has that team, but that Chubb injury hurts him. And then same thing with Jeffrey, the Eckler injury hurts him. And those were teams 1 and 2 on our power rankings. And then Cappers, who I think was number 3, he just got destroyed by Brady and losing Haskins. Brady, but Cam Newton and losing Haskins. So you're talking about the top 3 teams that were in our power rankings last year just took massive hits. So all of a sudden we've shrunk the balance right now to where, and then Ian, who loses Julio Jones, was right up there as well. I think the big 4 just lost one of their studs, which I think helps everybody else. But we're entering bye weeks, which is such a changer in fantasy. You can have a great starting lineup, but all of a sudden when you lose a guy, like I'm got to replace Aaron Jones. I mean, arguably my best player right now on my roster. I got to find a spot for him. So this is where, the pickups, the waivers, the free agents, all that stuff. This is where you separate the boys from the men, because if you can't win during the bye weeks, good luck the rest of the way.
Yeah, you're tough. Well, Casey, thanks for carving out some time here on a Wednesday afternoon. This was fun.
Always, Rob. Good to have. Yeah, good to be here. And bring me back. We'll do some picks on the 6 games later in the week.
Sounds good. Now we got some good stuff coming up. I know we've got Wade committed to a short pod this week. Kenny, I think, is coming up maybe this weekend, and we'll try to work everybody in here hopefully soon. Blick, we want to get you in. The Sadies, long overdue. So thanks for going in, Case. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Be safe.
Bye.